I'm sharing a reading experience. I took down notes from Gnosticism by Stephen A. Hollier, and I'm sharing them with you now. I hope you listen and receive something worthwhile from this. Remember, these are just my notes, not necessarily a report of what the book is about, and may not even be the words or thoughts of the author. Rather, these are notes that I gleaned or what I thought about while I was reading. These notes are what caught my interest because the ideas expanded my knowledge or made me think, reflect, or ponder in some way. This video might inspire you to read what I did. It's my hope that you'll search for the best books and gain information and ideas to help you to become a better person. The more you read, the better you think. And the better you think, the more you'll be able to face life's challenges successfully. Gnostic is derived from the Greek word gnosis, meaning to know. Its anonym, agnostic, means to not know. Gnosticism has always been difficult to understand, largely because it is a state of consciousness frequently amended by experiences and thus resistant to theological rigidity. The writings contain mystical themes showcasing abandonment, homesickness, alienation, entrapment, and ultimately freedom. These writings are not designed to convey information, but meant to cause spiritual transformation in the disciple. Because Gnostics used myth and metaphors, a hostile attitude arose in Orthodox Christians due to their attitude towards similar sounding Greek and Roman myths. Gnosticism developed at the same time and in the same places as early Christianity. Palestine, Syria, Samaria, and Egypt is where it came to its greatest flowering. The earliest known prophet was Simon Magnus of Geta, Samaria, who became a disciple of John the Baptist and was later baptized by the apostle Philip. According to him, Enoia was the mother of all who created angels and archangels according to the plan of the ultimate God. Simon Marcus wrote a number of theses. Among them were the Four Corners of the World and the Sermons of the Refuter. Among early Gnostic teachers was Lucius, who was the disciple of St. John. He was responsible for the sacred historical adventures of the first disciples of Jesus, written around 130 AD. He wrote the Acts of Peter, Acts of Andrew, Acts of Philip, Acts of John, which includes the hymn of Jesus, and the Acts of Thomas, which includes the hymn of the pearl. The hymn of the pearl was an allegorical journey of the human spirit from the celestial fullness to earth and back again. The divine prince comes to earth to liberate and retrieve a precious pearl. In his attempt, he falls prey to forgetfulness and alienation. Awakened by a letter, he continues his redemptive work and eventually returns to the realm of his celestial parents. These scriptures are designed to advance the enlightenment or gnosis of humanity. Philosophy attempts to answer the question of why. Myth and ritual reply to the question of whence. Gnostics were keenly aware of close relationships between the eternal and the temporal, the internal and the external, the inward transformation and the outward ritual act. Gnosticism requires the subtlety of thinking and a proactive, intuitive perception. For example, a Gnostic would say, cease to seek after God in created things such as the universe. Rather, seek him within thyself. Gnostic knowledge is not rational knowledge, but knowledge through a specific experience. It uses insight and involves an intuitive process that embraces both self knowledge and knowledge of the ultimate divine reality. It is less dogma and more inspiration, but it is not an empty box in which one can place whatever they want. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam place most of their emphasis on faith or the I believe credo. The Gnostic faith is not a belief, but a certain interior knowing. It is faith in one's own experience. The experience of the Gnostic is becoming acquainted with God, recognizing one's deeper nature as being part of God, and knowledge by personal acquaintance. In 2 Corinthians 4:6 of the New Living Translation suggests this by saying, "For God, who said, 'Let there be light,' in the darkness, has made this light shine in our hearts, so we could know the glory of God that is seen in the face of Jesus Christ." Rather than using theology and doctrines, Gnostic scriptures are generally stories that embody a number of meanings and certain truths, such as those found in the Hymn of the Pearl. The Gospel of John includes a number of discourses attributed to Jesus that have a great deal in common with the teachings of Gnostic literature. Unlike most Christian religions, which view Eve as someone who sinned, Eve in the Gnostic literature represents a higher transcendental consciousness. Eve was the wise woman, a true daughter of Sophia or wisdom, who awakened the sleeping Adam. Eve, in turn, passed her gift of gnosis to one of her daughters, Noria. Noria, also being a wise woman, eventually married Noah. The golden angel Eleth, who came from God, blessed Noah's descendants, who would be genuine followers of the truth. Sophia is viewed as the female who participated with God in the early cosmic acts of creation. The Roman Catholic Church combines Sophia as a subordinate element into the figure of the Virgin Mary. The Eastern Orthodox Christians never abandoned the teachings that a female manifestation of God exists. The Gnostics felt they were strangers on this earth. One of their teachers, Marcion, calls this world this created prison cell. The Gnostics saw Jesus with visionary eyes. He was a transcendent being, a denizen of another dimension or realm, who had temporarily found himself on earth. The Redeemer came to liberate the forlorn strangers from the prison cells where they found themselves by reminding us we are from another world and he can help us return. Gnostics believe that the human body originates from earth, but that the human spirit has come from afar. The spark of divinity resides within the individual, unconscious. Malevolent, sadistic beings called archons try to keep people in bondage by causing them to remain attached to earthly things, including mental concepts. Humanity is a throng of sleepwalkers. Awakening from the sleep is the combined result of our desire for liberation and the supernatural help extended to us by the divine messengers of light who help restore the human spirit and lead it back to the divine. Gnostics look to salvation not from sin, but from the ignorance of which sin is the consequence. Those who know the divine shed all sin, while those without gnosis cannot help but persist in transgressions. To be liberated from the predicament of spiritual ignorance, we require help alongside our own efforts. Liberating knowledge must come while the person is still in the embodied state. A person who is earthly has conduct that rises out of his state of consciousness. Murder is a result of a murderous state of mind. Right thinking must be present for the right action to occur. We choose our spiritual nourishment in a kind of marketplace where variety is predominant. What matters is whether you make a sincere effort to know yourself and thus be prepared for liberating gnosis. Let us try to mitigate the evils over which we have some control, remembering that it is beyond our power to eradicate misfortune altogether. When we transcend the world of Marxism, consumerism, and hedonism, we transcend evil. Until then, the best we can do is exercise our power of discernment to separate the good from the evil. We may not be able to rid the world or ourselves of evil, but we can rise above it. The Bible has been a great inspiration and affliction to Christendom. The glaring inconsistencies is obvious to an unbiased reader of the Bible. Marcion of Pontus was a ship owner who traded on the Black Sea around 150 AD. He was a bishop and a descendant of priests and bishops. Marcion did not accept Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John as trustworthy sources because he saw doctrine, tangents, and falsifications in them. However, Marcion considered St. Paul the Apostle as properly understanding the mission of Christ. Up until the 5th century, Marcionian churches were functioning and spreading until the rise of Islam extinguished them. The second great attack occurred in 1179 when Pope Alexander II cursed the Gnostically inclined catheters and declared them burnable. In 1206, the fanatical Spaniard Dominic de Guzman was commissioned by the next pope, Innocent II, to take charge of the spiritual combat against the catheters. This led to the first and only crusade ever conducted against fellow Christians from 1209 until almost 1250. The final blow to early Gnostic Christianity came in the late 4th century when a wave of fierce persecution burst among the followers of the Spanish bishop Priscilla of Avila. Despite the pleadings of charitable Orthodox Christians, including St. Martin of Tours, 3 knightly orders, the Knights of Malta, the Teutonic Knights, and the Order of Knights Templar, were soldier monks devoted to sheltering and defending pilgrims against the Order of Assassins, and Ishmaeli Mystical Military Association, headed by the Old Man of the Mountain. Since the 2nd century, Gnostics were numerous in France. Gnosis survived within the Catholic Order of the Knights Templar. On October 13, 1307, an order was given to dissolve the Knights Templar and arrest its leading officials. The Templars were burned at the stakes, and the murder of the Templars disturbed the entire populace of France. The revulsion left was lasting and great. The seeds of radical dissatisfaction with the throne and the altar were thus sown in France, eventually leading to the French Revolution many years later. Martin Luther was aware that the essential Gnostic regard for personal spiritual experience had largely disappeared from the Catholic Church. Many other cultures have gnosis as a central principle of their spirituality. The Sanskrit Jnana denotes spiritual knowledge, and Jnana Yoga practices the way of union through knowledge. Gnosis beliefs can be found in Hinduism, such as the presence of the divine in the human spirit. Divinity is a miniature within each person, and knowing one's deepest self is tantamount to knowing God. Gnostic beliefs can also be found in Mahayana Buddhism, such as the seeking of insight or interior revelation, which frees one from ignorance, the true root of evil. There are levels of spiritual attainment ranging from foolish materialist to illuminated saint. Rules and commandments may be critical, but they are also relative. The Old English word for gospel is Godspell, meaning good news. The Gospel of Mary concerns a narrative of mystical actions and the teachings of Jesus as recounted by Mary Magdalene. The Gospel of Truth is contained in the Young Codex. There is a vast amount of misinformation we obtain daily from the internet. This information is only as good as the source from which it is derived. We live in an era of cafeteria ideas. Like children, we believe sugar should come before nutrients. We therefore choose ideas based on our delusions. The more information we amass, the less real our lives become. Gnostics do not believe in seeking fruitless information the way people greedily look for facts on the internet. Gnostics seek the rapture of vision beyond known facts with insight, images, and realizations. Look at the difference between the daytime and the nighttime skies. Even though celestial luminaries are there, they are hidden by the harsh brightness of the day. When the glare of the sun vanishes, the night sky appears. Stars, light years away from us, come into view. Now, imagine a world, a reality, that denies itself the vision of the night sky and affirms only the daylight. Cut off from the visions of the stars, the inhabitants would experience only sharp contrasts. The imagination offered by the stars would be absent. Ours is a world of this kind of denial. We have a worldview based on the daylight of facts and data. We learn more and more about less and less. Robbed of Gnostic vision of the night sky with its mysterious lights, we have a disturbingly incomplete understanding of the non material aspects of our existence and our experiences. For at least the last 200 years, we have been deceived and abused by political theorists whose activities have brought suffering instead of their promised earthly paradise. We have discovered an enormous amount about the world around us. At the same time, we remain unaware of the worlds within us and beyond us. How do we know that consciousness exists? We know it only by personal experience. We need to recognize that our essential and abiding needs cannot be satisfied by earthly human resources. The daylight of earthbound thinking is inadequate to the task. What we need is another light, one that shines from beyond this world. Hosea, one of the more Gnostic figures of the Old Testament, blames the absence of divine knowledge of God for our misery. Hosea writes in Hosea 4:2 and 3, "There is no knowledge of God in this country. This is why the country is mourning." In the 17th and 18th centuries, Enlightenment proposed that we are the source of all of our values, and the natural world is merely an instrument of human objectives, and that God, if he exists at all, is irrelevant. In the Gnostic view, neither human beings nor the natural order can be a source of all values because we are radically alienated from the divine where true value lies. Only when human consciousness reaches out across the abyss of separation to contact the divine can true values be perceived. Our souls must overcome this alienation from the divine and become a stranger to the world. The New Age spiritual marketplace should leave its easy and shallow environment and commit to the demanding process of conscious self development. Gnostic scriptures have identified the human predicament as one of ignorance, sleep, drunkenness, and forgetfulness. How can someone using the Creator's name as foul language, who perceives flaws in religious things, and who cannot see commandments as a path for redemptive change, be anything but destabilizing to our society? For those who recognize life as tragic, who feel abandoned, alienated, and powerless, now possess the necessary right intent and sincerity to listen. These are the souls who are likely to turn their gaze from the harsh daylight of modern society to the mysterious luminosity of the night sky, where the distant light of Gnosis may be perceived. I hope you the best in all your many readings. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care.